Johnson.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock, and I'll call this finance meeting to order on September 10th, 2025. This meeting and all other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so that the citizenry may be aware of time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Roll call will indicate all members are present. And you have for your pleasure the agenda.
Mark moves to approve the agenda as presented. I'll second that.
Any other discussion on the agenda? Seeing or hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. And then you also have the minutes from the August 13th meeting.
Move to approve. I'll second that.
Any other questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Again, there might be somebody here for public comment. I guess just so people understand public comment, you are more than willing to speak, but we will not be able to comment on anything related to it at this time. So anyway, we're on public comment. I guess having seen that, we'll continue on. Ryan, are you up?
Yeah, it's from LJS.
Okay. Morning, everybody. So this agenda item, the intention behind it is to create a public transportation oversight committee. So as you all are aware, we're in the process right now of establishing a public transportation system within Waupaca County that is going to be replacing the existing transportation system that is set up as being a workforce. And so we're going to a public, and what we need is we need to have a group that is going to be watching over this project and making sure to reporting back to finance. So what I am just passing out right now is the organizational letter that basically details how and the duties and functions of this oversight committee. And so as was discussed at the previous meeting, what this group is intended on doing is going to be reporting back to you folks on a quarterly basis. Right now, that's what the DOT requires, is for the 5311 funding that we're seeking. They have a quarterly reporting requirement. And so the thought would be that we would have meetings with the finance committee coinciding with that timeline. And so that way you guys are being updated essentially at the same time. So for the full transparency of that. And so as the roster of this group, as we had discussed previously, we're looking at having members from the city of Waupaca, New London, and Clintonville, one person from the Aging and Disability Resource Department, East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, the executive director for the Wisconsin or Waupaca County Economic Development, planning and zoning director, and the chair of the county board of supervisors. And so the timeline on this is going to be basically the life of the project. And so as long as we have a public transportation system ongoing, we will have this oversight committee will be meeting. So we have it set up to be quarterly, but again, that it's really, it would exist at the behest of the finance. And so if finance wants to have additional meetings, that'd be at the request of finance. We'd be happy to comply with that. Is there any questions in terms of what this subgroup would, the function of it, how it would operate, or what it would be?
So it says one person representing the cities. Is that one from each city?
One from each city. Yeah, so the idea being that what we found early on, specifically in the city of Waupaca, so we have a new city administrator, we have a finance director that has been involved with the transportation system there for many years. And so what we're saying is that we are extending the invitation to the city administrator or his or her designee. And so if you have somebody in the within the city functions that is best suited for this. And we did that also for the, like ADRC. The ADRC manager has been involved with this. We know that there's an existing transportation committee that she's been also coordinating. And so it's really not about the person, it's about the position, representing that position or that department.
Ryan, how will this coexist or will work and perform with the current transportation things they have, like the city van in London, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Takes seniors to different places that suggested donations like $3.
Sure.
So this will be, both of these, will this be part of it, or?
So this new system, what this would be, it would be supplementing existing transportation systems that currently exist. And so like you're saying, there are a handful of those throughout the county that we have. We have some churches that do transportation. We have a business, Tyson Foods, does its own, they have their own van that they use for transportation. So the idea behind this would be that it would supplement that. And so it's hard to say with certainty right now because we don't have a vendor chosen that is going to be, so the RFP process we're going through right now includes the transportation service section of it, so the actual like nuts and bolts, the drivers, the vehicles, and then the other side of it is the technology side. And so the technology side is where we're going to be really working with those existing transportation systems. The existing vendor that we have right now for the workforce transportation project, it uses geolocation. And so if you were in the New London area, you're looking for a ride, and what it does is it shows you the current services that are available. So you don't need to use the one that we are working with. You can use a different one. If you have like R&R transport, you could use them. And so we're not making sure we're not stepping on any toes. What we're doing is that we're making sure to raise the level of capacity for basically everybody.
Okay.
Who's funding this, and is there the funds? Is there some that need to be, how are we operating this?
Sure, that's a great question. And so that's really why this group is going to exist, is because this is an expensive program. It's very expensive. It's well over $1 million a year to run this. And so the 5311 funding, it only covers a fraction of that. And so part of our RFP process is that it requires that vendor to be the person that is going to be looking for those funds to make up for that shortfall. All transportation systems throughout the state has a design set up a shortfall because they cannot pay for the entire thing in and of itself through 5311 funding. And so ridership fares, we have donations, there's all kinds of grants that we're gonna be pursuing. So the current vendor that we have right now, that is something that they've been doing very actively, and we've been able to find funding to make up for that shortfall. And that is the reason why we have this subgroup, is to make sure that there's somebody who's paying attention and we're getting all the reports back from that vendor to show that the health of this project is good, that we're not running ourselves into insolvency.
We'll be establishing a special revenue fund for this. That resolution will probably come next month. But it'll be a special revenue fund, so it will be segregated from the general fund, so you'll be able to see the operations through on the monthly report as its own separate fund. So it will be able to track it most definitely from the financing side of it.
The way it's set up though, I mean, there is risk with this.
Yeah.
And the reason why the DOT wants the county to be the ones that are pursuing this is because the understanding is that the county is going to be the ones that are going to be making up for any potential shortfall. But we're covering our backside by making sure that in our RFP that we're saying is that our vendor is the one who's responsible for coming up with that funding. But we know that there might be situations where that doesn't always happen. So the city of Wapaka, they have a standing line item for $10,000 for that very purpose. And so in my conversations with them in years past, they sometimes have had to dip into it, sometimes they haven't, and so the idea was that, but it was a fairly minimal amount of money, all told. But that's the thing about this, is that that's why we need to have these quarterly meetings to make sure that things are being done the way they should be done, the way the contract was written, and also to make sure that the funding's there, that we have the, and so if we need to change course, that we're doing this quickly rather than having this be something we only look at maybe once or twice a year.
And if we go broke, how long do we go broke?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, how far do we subsidize it as a county,
exactly,
I
and
mean,
that's.
I'm just learning here, so.
Yeah, and that's the function of the finance committee. And so if we go to the finance committee and we're seeing that the cost is outweighing the benefits, pull the plug.
Okay.
Is it safe to say, Ryan, that this is going to be like a live and learn for the first year,
So
the whole process?
the learning part is what I am finding, and so transit has changed in Wisconsin. Right now, the way the modern transit programs is built around technology. So the better technology you have, the more efficient and the better ran that whole system is. And so it's called, you want to minimize deadhead miles. So the amount of time you have with nobody in the car, that's just waste, that's what costs money. And so you need someone there, and you need to make sure that your ride times are minimized too. So built into our RP is we say 1 hour is our maximum. So the industry standard for a ride is 30 minutes. But for the older population, it's 1 hour. And so when it comes to efficiency, that hour so if you're paying $3 for a ride and you're tying up that car/driver for an hour, we're losing money. And so by using as much technology as we can squeeze out the efficiencies on this. So we can group the rides rather than have it we go pick this person up, drop them off, and come back. What this does is we say it's a 15-minute wait time is what we have built into the contract. And so if you say you need a ride, it builds in a 15-minute window. So if anybody else in that area, or using that technology, we can determine, well, if you go this way, you can pick up this person, we can make things as efficient as possible. In order for us to be able to make this work, and I should say the reason why other counties in the state don't have a transportation system as it stands right now is because it is just so expensive. There's a tipping point that happens when you start charging too much money for fares too. And that's what some of these cities are finding, is that it gets to a point to where if you start charging too much, the ridership starts going down. So you have to find that fine line to keep things competitively priced, but squeeze out as much efficiency as possible through technology.
So I'm just thinking out loud here. So if somebody in Clintonville, would you be able to take them to Theta Care and Nina?
That'd be too long of a drive.
That's what my question is,
Yes.
because now you're tying up an hour or better.
So if we were doing that on a consistent basis, it'd drive us into bankruptcy.
Okay.
Brian, is this gonna be limited to size of cities?
So not necessarily, no. So the size of the city isn't going to be hold any bearing. So the first phase is going to include ridership between Wapaka and New London with stopovers in Waiawega. Future phase 2 includes Clintonville with stopovers in Mantle. And so the city itself is not the size of the city has no bearing on that.
No, in other words, where are the guinea pigs here? Clintonville, New London, Wapaka.
In a way. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're trying to find the most amount of ridership that we can in the shortest amount of time. So what we did was, when we did our study, the transportation feasibility study, we found where the vast majority of our rides are occurring. And so we know that in our first phase, we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the most amount of demand that we possibly can in a short, because we want to make sure, we want to kind of phase this out. We want to make sure we can perfect our system before we can't get too big too fast. Because there's other revenue sources that we could potentially look at, and we also have built into the RP. There's package deliverables, there's prescription drug type, there's medical rides that you were talking about. certain other things that we can do. I can tell you that hospitals are looking to contract with us as well because medical rides are a very big deal. In terms of, it's surprising to me the amount of people that get out of the ER and have no way to get home.
What's that company, north end of Clintonville?
Oh, the taxi service?
Upstairs, it's an assembly thing. Yeah. That,
Now, you have a certain amount of money there already.
We no, so we had a $3.2 million grant that we received from the Workforce Innovation.
Pretty much.
That's gone. So that actually expired at the end of June. We knew that this process was taking longer than what we were hoping that the DOT would work with us on. And so we asked the state for a 3-month extension and they granted us. And so we now have funding through the end of September.
Okay. I knew it was sometime this year.
So we're looking to get someone under contract and operating by October 1. I can tell you though too, this is news that just happened just yesterday. But yeah, we're running into some issues when it comes to the actual RFP itself. The DOT is talking, but they may actually pull our procurement right now, and we might have to restart. Evidently, they found an issue with one of our appendixes. So just as a way of an update on that process itself.
So you're looking for one vendor to handle the entire county?
Yes. And so we are gonna be, there's gonna be a buffer, a 3-mile buffer that we're gonna be having around the county. You know, like say a good example is like say New London, we know New London spills over into Outagamie, you know, and so we do have buffers built into as one of the questions that does come up quite often.
Hillshire, for example, is one of them.
Yeah.
My district has a lot of people cannot afford a car, so it's like chicken and egg thing. Can't get a job because they don't have a car to get to the job, and they can't buy a car because they don't have any money coming from a job. So this has been a solution for a bunch of those people.
And we did a quick experiment and we tried to book an Uber from Manawa to Wapaka, and it was $60.
How much?
60.
Very expensive.
how's that gonna work, Ryan, with New London? Most of the industries in Outagamie County.
And so we have that 3-mile buffer to include those with the understanding to take in those people.
I mean, like Hillshire, you won't have to worry about it because
They have their own transportation that they do provide, right? But we would be supplementing that transportation as well. We've been in contact. Hillshire Farm was one of the people involved with when we were first creating this program.
we should probably properly call them Tyson.
Tyson.
Okay, you've heard all the comments and
Mark moves, approve resolution number 16, creation of Wapaka County Public Transportation Oversight Group.
Second.
any further comments or questions? Okay, call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Before Heidi comes up here, Supervisor Schauer has something for her.
You look scared.
Where you
This is just something for your new office. Read it and share it with the people here. It seems to fit you too.
Am I supposed to open it?
Yeah, I have a million of those pretty bags that I didn't find one of them for me. So,
I was impressed with your presentation.
A day without spreadsheets is like, just kidding, I have no idea. That is so true. Yeah, the IT was putting on a new office on my computer and it didn't work and I'm like, oh no. No. Can't do that to me. So true. Thank you so much. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the 2026 budget update. On your desk, I put a very big packet of information. I'm basically just gonna go through the first couple of pages, but it'll give you a little more detail by fund, by governmental funds, by department, all those things. But overall, in the 2026 budget, we had an operating levy increase of $284,794. So that's what we started out, that's what I'm starting out with for an allowable increase. On the proposed budget, I tried to put where personnel services was not the total impact of increases or decreases. If you start at the top of it, we've got the general revenues. Right now, like on county sales tax, I just transferred out at this point the same amount that I transferred to the Transportation Services Fund last year, which leaves us with about $824,163 left to allocate of the sales tax. There's a decrease in interest on investments, which basically wipes out our increase to property tax by about $60,000. So operating levy there would be about $60,000. There's a real increase in the budget for the personal property aid of $9,425. And then state shared revenues, there's a slight increase. So we've got about $76,308 there. So overall in the general revenues right now, there's an increase to levy. When you're seeing a negative, it's an increase to levy, by the way. $697,396 with that $824,000 yet to be allocated. And then you can see as you go down, each department and the levy impact of that department. And again, I tried to put notes where it wasn't personal services that affected the increase. The first one is in my area. You're seeing a $793,436 increase. Last year, we applied $862,092 of insurance fund balance to offset health insurance premiums and worker comp premiums. And I'll come back to that conversation once I get through this. In the county clerk's area, the $78,258 increase, $64,736 is in library aids, which is it's not part of levy limits. So that's its own, library aids have its own area. Then if you go down to judicial circuit courts, there's almost a $60,000 increase. They have an increase of $45,000 in attorney fees. And then down to maintenance, we've got an increase of $115,896. And I must have missed putting anything on that piece. That was that's in supplies and expenditures, and I'll have to go back and look at that. I think that was because we applied fund balance to some of that in 2025. So we could, for the costs associated with the new buildings, not the new buildings, the buildings that we're maintaining through the process. So I'll have to go back and look at that number for you to figure out if there's some area that we can do something there. In law enforcement, we have a $1,053,138 increase. $466,000 of that is in operating costs. And as we talk through that, that does include the three new positions on levy. Emergency management is a decrease, and then all the rest are related to personnel services. We have so right now, there's a 4.42% increase in the general fund for $875,100. And then moving on to the second page on the special revenue funds, the Transportation Services Fund right now has an increase of $427,786. That was what we applied for fund balance basically in 2025. don't anticipate there'll be fund balance to apply for that this year. In the health services area, there's an $81,000 increase. We did, I think Jed mentioned this at the county board. He had the decrease in the SNAP Ed funding for $42,951. There's other revenue decreases there, and then some personal services. In human services, there's of the $463,000 increase, I'm estimating about $244,000 of the increase for contracted services based on trends. This does not include, we have one kiddo that's about right around $45,000 to $50,000 a month. The budget does not account for that. So ultimately, you know, the hope is that, you know, their fund balance is strong enough to sustain that for a while, along with, you know, human services does have vacant positions. And I'm hoping that we can absorb the cost of that individual through that process. This is more in the area of mental health services. So that for human services, that's a $602,652 increase in levy.
So is there, I'm sorry, Heidi, is there an estimated timeline for that? Like,
I
How
don't know the
long
age of the
that-
kiddo, but until he turns 18.
okay, thank you.
Unless there's, I mean, I know that Mary's working diligently on that situation, but
It's scary that you have 2 or 3 people like that come along.
yes, absolutely,
He's
Just
not
worth
close
it.
to emancipating.
Okay, thank you.
He's far from 18.
yes. Yes. So overall in the special revenue funds, we're seeing about a $1 million increase. Debt service is actually decreasing about $56,873. That does not impact the operating levy. And then in capital improvements, overall, we're seeing a $667,838 increase from 2026. And that was almost the amount that we had in 2025. We postponed the jail controls. We did not fund that in 2025, and that's almost the amount of that project. So you can see that in the capital improvement fund, it's really an ongoing cost. It's same as with highway, even though they're capital costs, they're the same costs overall. And I'll talk more about that. So overall, I'm about $3.9 million short in the budget. I need some cuts or funding of about $4 million. Now, that does not include, the budget does not include any health insurance adjustments. We are very confident that we will have to make a health insurance adjustment. At this time, we don't know what that amount is. Mandy's working diligently with our consultants to figure out what that's gonna be. I just put in here, I personally think the minimum increase will be 10% which would be a cost to the county of about $528,000. In the budget, we have the estimated cost of contract and step adjustments. That was about just shy of $793,000. We did incorporate the 1.5% cost of living adjustment. That's $417,563, and also included in the budget was the courthouse security 3 FTEs of $338,426. So of the increase at 1.5 million is in the operations. We have been utilizing unassigned fund balance. At the end of 2024, we were to the good of about 1.9 million over our policy. We budgeted use of that unassigned of 1 million in 2025, and right now there's 480,000 for an advance to the Wetland Mitigation Bank for 480,000, which would bring our unassigned fund balance over policy about 400,000. So about $400,000 to play with there. And then in the insurance fund balance, we have 2.2 million. We budgeted a use of 862,000, knowing that the insurance claims that we were gonna have to have this increase. I do anticipate that we are probably gonna utilize more than that. then, but that would give us about 1.3 million and the insurance fund balance. So, but I think that we're gonna have to kind of hold that a little bit till we see the numbers on the health insurance piece. With my calculations, I'm thinking we need about $2 million cut or some sort of funding for capital. And I think we need about another 2 million cut in operating or some sort of funding for operating. Our options would be obviously to reduce the capital, and I can actually hand this out. These are just some of my quick numbers. Obviously, you know, these are decisions that I can't make. So I can just hand this out, just what I came up with, where I'm coming up with these numbers. So we have budgeted in sales tax, I have budgeted, give enough? In sales tax, I budgeted, we increased the budget by $539,623. Hoping we can make that work. I do know that we will be over on sales tax in 2025. So if we don't meet that mark in 2026, we should have some cushion there. So we have $5.6 million in sales tax revenue. Highway construction net impact is about 5.3 million. And then we have in the capital improvement fund, these are the capital improvements that we have in the budget. The first two, the tract index project is in there, that's already been budgeted, so that'll be fund balance applied for non-lapsing. The jail roof is now up 100,000 from last year, so we budgeted $300,000 for that, so that's $100,000 impact this to the 2026 budget. We have $729,000 in for squads, but we have some overspending in squads in previous years, so I got $486,000 budgeted to catch them back up to where they'll be able to maintain their squad replacement. The jail control system is at $663,000. We have a draining and ditching project at the PTF for $95,000. Replace the dock at Taylor Lake for $35,000. Parks vehicle replacement $73,500. A mower at Parks for $38,500. Concrete floor in the Goat Rabbit Barn for $30,000. Land and water vehicle $50,000. Land and water equipment $30,000, and a planning and zoning vehicle $25,000. So the net impact of the capital improvement fund is 2.3 million, which is about 2 million in excess of our sales tax revenue. And then, so I just threw together some possible options. Again, you could reduce your capital expenditures just by $2 million, or you always have the option to issue the debt service to cover the unfunded capital improvements. You know, that would be a process as to how you'd want to do that. Again, like I said, the capital doesn't change. It's the same amount every year. It's just that, you know, we've been forced to make decisions, and those decisions has been to use the unassigned fund balance to pay for these ongoing capital, and we don't have any unassigned fund balance left, really. For operating, I'm estimating we need to make, well, I'm saying 2.4 million, because once we make that health insurance adjustment to the operating, we have about, you know, probably maybe even 2 million. We probably could maybe do 2 million. We can do a referendum to increase our operating levy. Well, you can reduce your expenditures. You can cut programs and you can cut expenditures. You can do the referendum to increase your operating levy. The only other option that I can see is implementing a wheel tax to fund the county highway maintenance, and which would free up. Right now the maintenance is budgeted at 3.4. They're receiving about 2.4 million in general transportation aids. So and the wheel tax can be used for maintenance and construction. A $25 wheel tax would bring them in about 1.2 million. A $30 vehicle wheel tax would bring just shy of 1.5 million, and a $35 vehicle wheel tax would be just 1.7 million. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know that I have anything left. Each committee of jurisdiction has passed these budgets on, so apparently it's all needed. So I don't have anything left really to offer at this point. So I need help from this committee.
Just, and I know you probably haven't looked at this. This is one item, but if you try to look ahead a year or two, does it look any better?
Not unless we start selling some wetland mitigation credits to help give back some of that advance to the wetland mitigation bank to increase that fund balance again. We're gonna have about 2 million advances to that wetland mitigation bank with no sales credits. So once those sale credits start coming in,
Then you got some money.
we're kind of growing that unassigned fund balance again.
Because like I said, my financial brain is working. It's like, okay, this is one issue, but looking ahead, where are we
Well,
going?
yeah, I mean, that's how we ended up in the situation, because there hasn't been really that, I've been saying for years that we're gonna hit the wall, and I think we're here. I think we've hit the wall. Cause every year I've just come back and said, well, you could fund it this way and you fund that way, and there is not much left to do.
So out of those capital expenditures, do you have any idea how, if anybody can come forward and say, well, postponing it is one thing, but it's still there, okay? And then if you go to work and say you postpone it and increase by 100,000, that then no matters either.
Yeah, I probably could come up with $500,000 in the capital improvement fund. We do have a little bit of a fund balance there. I think it's right around 500,000. I do like to keep a cushion in there because capital improvements, you just never know, right? I mean, you're coming in with a budget, and those are just somewhat unknown, and we tend to, sometimes they come in higher than you think, and sometimes they come in lower. I probably would have 500 in the capital improvement fund that I could apply to fund those. My concern, like even with that jail roof, it went from 300 to 400 in 1 year. So I don't know, I don't know where that piece is at and how critical that is. I know that Parks actually reduced their capital from the previous year for the amount that they were expending on an annual basis. So, the vehicles have to be replaced.
And you have to look at the big items because the 30 and the 50,000 ones don't, don't get me wrong, they add up, but not that much.
Well, they could, utilize, and the thing of it is we could wait to see how the 2025 budget ends and bring back in something that's been cut on the capital side of it, not on operating, because that's one time, unless someone has, because last year we had, and that's just it, like, I don't know what's happening because we had budgeted that we were gonna use 1.1 million and we used 805. So we're using the fund balances that we're budgeting to use. And so there was some cushion in the general fund that way, but overall, we have departments that are going over budget. So I'm nervous about using fund balance because when we're going over budget, then there's no funds to cover that piece either.
What about the jail control system? I know you've talked about it. Postponing it down the road or anything, is that beneficial anywhere?
I don't really know what I know that was one that came in last year that you pushed down into this year.
Right, I'm just, I realize we lived without it, but how long can you live without it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Could Kevin could you give us a rundown on what that exact,
So what the computer system that's in there is running Windows 7. Now, it's not hooked up to the internet, so we don't have to worry about a security breach in that manner. But it will sort of replace all those computers. Those computers run the lights, the TVs, the intercom systems, all the doors that move. Officers control all that. In addition, it's hardware for the moving doors. We're at the point where they're bringing in old hardware. You can't get the new stuff anymore. So those controls need to be replaced because right now they can't get new parts.
I think Ron said he was getting some of it off of eBay, looking for parts.
We switched vendors. We were using Sergeant Inc. I don't remember the exact number. I want to say that this new company is like $100,000 cheaper than what we were asking for last year, or somewhere in that neighborhood.
The other option is we wouldn't give them the catch up on their squads, which is 500,000, but because we budgeted, you remember that a few years ago, we budgeted a year ahead so that they could start purchasing those vehicles in November, prior to because they didn't have the funding for it before November when the budget was adopted. So a few years ago, we budgeted so that we're technically budgeting for the 2027 vehicles in 2026 to give them the ability to purchase those vehicles. But then after Kevin and I sat down, it's clear that they've been over budget. So in order to catch them back up, that's what we're going to be about $486,438 to catch them to get their 2025 and 2026 vehicles purchased. And then $729,000 is to purchase their 2027 vehicles.
Let me ask you a question about vehicles, because there's all kinds of vehicles, okay? Are we getting the most practical, or are we over on, you got the right end and the left end? Where are we at?
I guess you're kind of putting that into your department's hands.
So speaking from experience, I can't speak on like administrative vehicles or anything like that, but the Explorers that they use for patrol, it's probably the best vehicle you can get for prisoner transport and all the equipment that guys have to carry now. You need that bigger. I know my last Crown Vic, I had the trunk packed so tight with stuff that I needed that the stop sticks were getting bent. And they were mounted on the trunk lid. So when we went to the Explorers, I had room for all the equipment and still able to transport somebody I arrested. So the SUV looking, even though they look maybe a little fancier than what a squad car should be, it's very practical. But I was never an administrator, so I don't know what those guys need. But it's going to be a sort of an elementary level question, Heidi. When you say departments go over budget, being relatively new to the finance committee, by the time it gets to us, we're just moving money around. It's already happened, right? And we're trying to figure out how we can.
It should have happened at the committee level.
It should happen at the committee level.
Right. So that's what.
We don't have a lot over budget. I mean, we don't have a lot over budget. Last year in the general fund, law enforcement was over 540,000. And then we had another health and human services, which was over 18,000, which I gotta look at that one because I don't know where that is. So that was those areas, but then health and human services was over budget, but then when they're over, they were able to bring in their charges for services increase of 662,000. So overall, their net change actually increased in that area. mean, transportation services was over $727,000. Yeah, so,
So transportation services, county highway, right?
Yeah.
So how do we fix that? How do we, we're the money people here, so how do we come down on the other committees to say, you can't spend that money, you have to jump through more hoops, and then all of a sudden Heidi has to come up with, pull another
Heidi.
rabbit out of her hat.
not Heidi.
Well, it's sort of,
I can't, I don't have it, I just
that's
don't
what I
have
mean. You've been doing it for years. You've been pulling those rabbits out, bringing them to us to figure a way to fix that. That, to me, that's where we have to stop. It has to stop.
I agree totally with Pete. We have to stick to the budget that we passed.
I understand the law enforcement end. If you have a triple homicide or something, that's gonna blow anybody's budget out of the water or anything like that, but I just haven't seen anything that's of a natural disaster or catastrophic thing that should have caused that much money to be overspent. So, like I said, I'm new to the game. How do we stop it?
Well, we're gonna have to stop it, cause we don't have any money left.
Right.
But,
Whose tail do I have to twist? Who's?
well, I can start bringing, the budgets by department to you every month. I mean, put that back on the committee's jurisdiction.
And to me, and this isn't the first year, right? This isn't the first year it's happened. So the ball's been dropped long enough. Maybe it is time to come back to this committee, that the information comes to us, and then, if the other committees aren't willing to make those hard calls, that it comes to us and we take the responsibility for it. I just don't know any other way of reining it in, So do you need a motion on that to make that happen, or I'm willing to do that?
If that's great, I just really need help with the 2026 budget right now.
And if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, there's really probably 3 departments that are huge in spending. I mean,
Right.
all of them, that's where it's at. And I think giving some credit to Mary's department, they have been seeking more revenue to offset their expenses, which has helped us. So then that leaves you with 2 departments that have to look at themselves and say, what can we do? Where are we going?
So you're saying the highway, being the chairman there, we're gonna have to spend less, let's put it in black and white.
Yeah.
We're gonna have then or I should say short, we're gonna just do less next year to make sure that we don't spend. Casey's here and if that's one, we got to know that we got to, tell us what we can spend, and I guess we'll have to work at getting our budget and our expenses down to that point.
To me, that's the bottom line, is once we set the budget, that's it. And it's up to the committees then to make sure we don't go $1 over that prior.
I know that in the highway, the funding for Lakeview Manor there is, coming on the general fund. Our game plan was to put it back in there in the future, but it's taking longer than we anticipated to get it back on the plus side. And I'm not sure, I know we're getting some more credits, but
Yeah,
Just-
a big thing with the wetland mitigation bank, in my opinion, is about a quarter of the costs out there were for materials. The other 3/4 of the costs are keeping our guys busy doing stuff and paying their wages. And so if we wanna look at less costs at the mitigation bank, let's just get rid of a bunch of people in the townships we service. Cause that's our biggest, what we're trying to outfit our operations for is servicing all these towns and outfitting our operations to service the towns. And if we got rid of, I don't know, 10 townships and they plowed their own snow, huge switch in our operations, even with the amount of shops we need to maintain. So I'm throwing that as an option, big picture, but we're just really subsidizing for all these towns.
That's probably the reason too why the townships are coming to the county to try to have us take over that operation.
And why you got Portage County right next to us that doesn't service one township at all, because they know it is not good for their financial operations. So when service agreements come due, we'll just not renew them and cut the employee in the truck. But I need people to be on board with that.
Exactly.
That's hurting us.
That's our job, right? To make those hard decisions
And like the
that,
law enforcement is the other end of it, so it's like tough decisions, but they're gonna have to be made. And that's kind of why I ask, as far as vehicles, are we on the left and the right, you know, I don't know, I'm not on that committee, right?
Casey, do you know how much money we lose doing the township snow plowing?
Money we lose, we plow, well, at the last finance meeting or 2 finance meetings ago, I told you we have 3 employees to plow the village of Embarrass, the village of Ogdensburg, the village of Scandinavia, and the village of Big Falls, and of them, 3 employees at $80,000 an employee with fringe benefits, that's $240,000 just in wages. And then those 3 villages, for instance, in all of 2024, hired us for about $7,000 worth of work. So
I don't know any
that's a
snow.
red flag. So we just met with the village of Embarrass 2 weeks ago, Lee, and said, we're done with you. So
Okay.
that next conversation comes to Scandinavia and then Ogdensburg. Yeah. When it comes to cutting county highway road projects, 333 miles to maintain. If you can flip a road once every 30 years, we should be doing about 30 miles, 13 miles a year. And we could definitely get out of the big earth moving construction jobs because them are very pricey and doesn't flip a road quick enough for us to get that 13 miles. Getting out of heavy construction and selling our bulldozers and excavators and all that stuff sounds great, but we still need the bulldozers and excavators for maintaining our own infrastructure. It's not like we have extra equipment just to maintain, just for construction, it's multi-use. So there's a lot of things that we can look at, but they're very big picture. Where elected officials, committee members are gonna get an earful and the snow isn't getting plowed. That's weird, that's the hard part of where I'm at. It's the challenge.
Although it hasn't come up in conversation, in my history with the county, a wheel tax was presented probably about 8 years ago for the full board, and it was did not pass. But because there's a new session, it can come back to the full board. So it can be if there's appetite for a wheel tax conversation, it's ripe for consideration for the full board.
The only operating levy that I can, or the only operating revenue that a few years ago, we were using our interest on investments and our sales tax to pay for our capital, had to switch interest on investments over to operating, and now interest on investments dropped and basically took away all of our operating levy increase. So this is a new day. And I think that it's unfortunate. I think that, we're forced to run a lot of operations based upon statute. A lot of these are required. They don't, intergovernmental revenues are not increasing. They're staying stable. So, to find grants is for new programs, new programs or fund something that you don't already exist. Those funding for the programs that are mandated is not increasing while our costs are increasing. So we're kind of to a point where we're gonna probably have to do this our work with less and find areas to cut programs that aren't mandated.
Back on the wheel tax, I'm not really sure how that gets implemented. Does it have to go back to the public to approve it?
No, it's just a
not.
kind
Or can the county board?
the county
just-
board, yeah, it's not like a referendum.
Does the Portage or Outagamie have a wheel tax?
Portage County has a wheel tax.
Does the city of New London?
Yeah.
City of New London has a
One
wheel
does, yeah, $20.
They tried charging me and I don't even live in.
I can't,
You're gonna have a donation.
I think Portage was started at 25. I live in Portage, it went up to 30. One county went up to 35 this year. Most counties are between 20 and 25. I think there's 17 counties, a lot of municipalities. If you live down in Dane County, I think you pay a pretty substantial amount of wheel tax if you live in Dane, because I think the cities have it as well. And I wanna be very clear on this, there is a difference between operating and capital. And I'm proposing a wheel tax for operating because it's an ongoing revenue source. I wouldn't, I still think we have to do something with capital. And what that proposal would be, I don't know as far as the wheel tax. But that would definitely, unless somebody has operating revenue somewhere else or has ideas as to where else to cut the operations,
Question on the wheel tax, Shawano County, I think tried theirs, and I think the city of Shawano. Okay, but now if New London's got a wheel tax, is that, then you paid up 2 times? So.
you live in the county and the city, yep.
Yeah.
That's why I said if you live in, there's, like I said, if you look at it, there's a lot of municipalities that carry the wheel tax. And I know like in Dane County, the city of Madison has, their wheel tax is pretty substantial. If you live in those areas. But I don't know about the other municipalities who would, with the counties that have adopted it, which municipalities are paying, in full. That's a decision for you all to
I
make.
just don't know where we get 1.2 million from if we don't approve it.
But I think we need to get our house in order first before we drop this on the public. Make sure that we have things cut to what we need, and then and we need to generate that money. There's no other way to do it.
And you can't issue debt service for operating. I suppose you could.
No, I wouldn't recommend it either. That's just digging yourself in the hole.
It seems ever since wetland mitigation bank or the source of thing was discussed, first there was going to be great super new source of funds. But then certain people in the financial area just knocked it. That, it's going to be forever before we can't get any money out of the thing. Well, is there any accurate way to forecast what that could mean to us, Casey? Are we going to have any money by next March? Are we going to have stuff by next summer?
Heidi asked me that same question. Right now, I have no buyers, but since we had that conversation last week, 2 people contacted me. I gave them our price per credit. They didn't get back to me that they wanted to buy it, so is my price too high to generate revenue? No, cause I'm about $20,000 below the average. So they're just not buying from us. Our credits aren't available yet either. We've sold all of them
that we have available.
in our shrub car wetland mitigation.
And what did that generate? Cash,
About $250,000
$250,000 to Atlantic County.
just for a couple credits, yeah.
That's $250,000 that we didn't have last year.
So is there a
We've
timeline?
invested almost 2 million into it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Is there a timeline on
to get
when-
this hand to get something, we paid out and now our return
Takes money to
has
make
not
money.
come back yet. It's
We received 103,000 in 2024 and we've received 123,000 in 2025. And we've spent 1.4 million. We're budgeted to spend another 297,000 and we're asking for 480 for next year. So, yeah. And that's coming from the unassigned fund balance.
So is there a timeline on when they will release the credits for sale?
When the as-built for phase 1 is submitted, and more credits will be released. Our engineer is currently designing that right now. And then phase 2, that we're putting in 70,000 trees for phase 2, we're still building it. And once it gets built, it goes into a 5-year monitoring plan to meet the vegetation and hydrology standards. And they release credits as we meet those standards, so it doesn't just say you spend it, you make it the next year at all. This is gonna be there for forever.
What about if we have all the capital fund, improvement funds, have everybody relook at them and see what they can minimize or cut out, first of all, so we start at a decent level.
So how far do we?
I don't know that answer until they meet.
Well, no, but I mean, how far do we have to, and all these three, say these three people or 3 committees, how far do we have to get in each committee to, or each section to get back down to the budget? So you take $1 million out of each one, or is that too? I mean, we can stop building roads for a year with it. That's not gonna help, but I mean, it's just 1 year, but it's, if that's what it takes, we'll just push some stuff off that we were gonna build next year to the following year.
We know what the total ID's recommending there is 2 million for capital.
Yeah, like I said, I probably could come up with 500,000. There's 500,000 in the capital improvement plan that I could probably utilize to fund it. And then it depends on how 2025 ends, and how comfortable you are with our sales tax number for 2026. Because then, you know, we could always put some back if we are over budget in the sale. We know we're gonna be over budget in the sales tax area. So, you know, when Mark and I went back and forth a little bit on that sales tax number, and he wanted to go a little more conservative, and I pushed him to go a little bit higher, because I knew we needed it. And I knew that 2025 was gonna come in high. So I figured, well, if we don't meet the budget necessarily on sales tax, we would have a little bit of cushion coming out of 2025. But, you know, we know that there's probably 500,000 in sales tax over budget in 2025, which would increase the fund balance. And as long as everybody remains within budget in 2025, I should be able, then that, well, actually, you shouldn't be using sales tax for operating. So,
Technically
It's
not.
like paying your mortgage with your birthday money.
Yeah. well, and it's not really by statute allowed. So, if you took that 500,000, you know, if we could maybe cut $1 million, I could probably come up with $1 million.
And the other thing I hope we keep in mind is, as a county, we did put 1.5% increase for adjustment for inflation wages, but that's not, we're not keeping up. I mean, we're still falling behind doing that even. So that's why it's very imperative that we do something. Cause we got good employees and a lot of people enjoy working here.
Can them squad cars be bought 6 months later or a year later? I know you're trying to buy, we have the same problem buying trucks, you know, you gotta buy them ahead to get them.
So
Used to.
last year it was open to purchase for 2 weeks.
They run into, there, and that's kind of why we decided to try to get that funding back in there, is they're struggling with those squads. That's where I was saying if I use the $500,000 that's in that fund balance to fund that squad catch up. Technically would be funding that squad catch up. And then if we take the sales tax overage from 2025 of 500,000, if we get there, that could offset that, you know, some of those costs as well. And then we'd have try to cut $1 million.
How long do we keep our squad cars?
Normally 4 years as a full-time squad, and then they get used as spare squads for 2 or 3 years after that.
So Kevin, if for some reason, and I'm not putting this all on you, if the jail roof does not get done next year, does that mean, is it leaking really bad or is it?
I think that's a
That's
Ron thing, I have
Yeah,
no,
that's
no
maintenance.
Okay, I thought maybe you hear back on that.
No, I mean, I know we have leaks from time to time, but I think that's piping issues. I don't know what the roof is causing.
I know Ron, that's maintenance's project, so
And I think we've pushed that off.
it was
It looks like we pushed it back
it was budgeted in 2024. And then with ARPA funds, and then it was non-lapsed into 2025 for 300, well, not ARPA, but technically ARPA. And then 300,000 non-lapsed into 2025. And now it's non-lapsing into 2026 with $100,000 increase in price tag.
I'm looking at that in the jail control for $1 million. That's kind of where,
Mhm.
you know what my brain is doing.
Yeah, and this might be just kicking the ball down the road, but if you did half of the project in 2025 and the other half in 2026, you're breaking it up, but then you might be putting off something that you needed in 2026. So I'm not sure if that's the answer either. I mean, either like
In 2025, using that sales tax, you mean?
well, even like the jail control system, if we do half of it in 2026 and the other half at the beginning of 2027, you split it up into 2 years. And I don't know if that's helpful or not, because again, we're kicking the can down the road. Do we have the money yet? But it would be one way to get going on some of these projects, like the law enforcement catch up and then the law enforcement squads. I just don't know if you would be able to do that on those types of things. You can only like put off stuff for so long. I mean, vehicles we need.
Yeah, and the majority of this is vehicles and equipment.
Right, the smaller stuff like the replacement of the dock at Taylor Lake or the concrete floor in the goat and rabbit barn, that's only $65,000, you know, to put that off, but I would think the committees would want to choose their own things to chop, not us to chop them for them.
That's what I'm saying, give it back to them and see
Yeah.
what they could come back to us. And give us some real thorough examination.
Do we have time for that?
Well, we'll have to have a special meeting.
Right.
I mean, that's the only
I
way.
mean, this committee could have a special meeting,
Right.
but do we have time for everybody to do that and get back to us? Or do we have a special meeting and let them know that this is what's gonna happen? Like, give them a deadline.
I think we give them a deadline, otherwise it won't might not happen.
And the capital improvements.
Yeah,
I do like Lila's suggestion, is
well,
particularly like squad cars, if we can say squad cars that are giving us problem or have a lot of maintenance issues or something, get rid of those, but if you have some squads that are holding up, so to speak. If we can push them off till spring.
You have to bid, yeah, you have to bid on them at certain times.
Yeah, and that's coming up. It's, we have a 2-week
That's the bidding, that's
window
that
available.
2-week window.
I don't know, I mean, this year if it'll be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But even the dealers say that you normally get 9 squads and you want 12. It's hard for them to get, if you wanted 3 extra, it's harder for them to get them. Like there are a lot of this, the agency usually purchases this and then you gotta get approval from the manufacturer to even get more.
Any appetite for the wheel tax at all?
I think we're gonna have to do both.
But I think we make the cuts first to
Yeah.
show that we're trying to, trying to get
When's a
things.
good time?
Wheel tax is something that we gotta look at.
Well, for long term, I mean.
Yeah.
Period.
It's,
Well, and think about it, like, I mean, Fred made a very valid point too, and Casey's talked about this wetland mitigation bank. Right now, we're building the wetland mitigation bank for future revenue. Not, I doubt that revenue is gonna ever, I mean, how do I wanna say this the right way? It doesn't mean because you implement a wheel tax that you always have to have the wheel tax. It's something that, again, it's operating, right? Like, it's so hard for me to help understand the difference between capital and operating. Like you could, you can't really use sales tax for capital or for operating. And, issuing debt service to pay for capital, now your taxpayers are paying interest on this. This is totally different because this is operating. That I'm proposing wheel tax as an operating revenue, 100%. And I just want to make sure that, we understand that these are 2 different issues. We have the capital issue and we have the operating issue. And they're and I'm 4 million short, 2 million on both sides. And so, I don't have any other rabbits at this point. I mean, so I don't know that we have, cutting 2 million from operations. I mean, that's, cutting my whole department would be a quarter of that.
That's what I was just gonna say, my department is about 500,000.
I mean,
Well,
I don't,
like
I
said,
mean,
there's only 3 big
but
departments.
at some point, you're gonna have to start, at some point, those discussions have to happen too. I mean, we are operating programs on levy that are not mandated and, it's something you're probably gonna have to look at.
When do you want the next possible finance meeting here, a special one? How soon?
Not before next Tuesday, cause I have to.
Well, no, then we wouldn't want to do it before next Tuesday, but
Well, I got a highway meeting next Thursday to see what we can cut in our budget, but, not until next Thursday.
Your department head next Thursday, I can send out an email to all department heads asking for any cuts if they have any. Or to revisit their budgets to see.
I think that'd be a good idea.
We can look at, I just don't know that there's time to really evaluate more revenue in human services for the billing side of things. I know that we're doing everything we can to help them capture all the revenue possible in their area. But and then go from there, I guess. A couple weeks for sure. I think when's our next meeting?
Well, I'm saying here in September, yet what date would you wanna pick?
And Dwayne, keep in mind, we have the WCA that's gonna have quite a few of you out. The 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
When is the deadline that we have to make a decision?
Well, we don't wanna get up to that.
Well, I know, but I mean,
I have to
so you
read,
gotta do it before that, is what I'm saying.
I have to read the budget at the end of October.
Alright, so it's gotta be next month, early.
What about that Thursday in September here?
How come I can't find my calendar?
25th.
Yeah, 26.
Cause we're really gonna have to look at cutting operating expenses and capital. It's not just one or the other.
Yeah.
Some way,
it's
or
gonna
some
have
way
to be a
to do
Combination,
it.
wheel
Yeah.
tax, everything, so.
Right.
Like, you got your calendar, keep that in mind.
What's the 25th? 25th, how about the 25th? It's a Thursday. How do we do that? 25th, everybody? No, it's Lila?
I'm the only one, I'll be coming back from someplace. District meeting.
Well, like we hear from Washington all the way on down to the cities, we don't have a revenue problem, we got a spending problem. Period, end of story.
So trying to word this delicately, and I'm not usually good at that. So I'm wondering if the rest of the committee feels like I do, that we let the other committees know that you make the cuts or we do. And, you know,
Good point, Pete, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we
'cause
have to.
that's,
I mean, there gotta be a stern message and that we're in trouble. You know, we gotta solve a couple big problems. And it's not funny and it's not,
or am I the
something
only one,
kick-
or just me and Fred thinking that way?
Yeah,
I'm with you. I mean, if it was my committee, I would rather make a decision than have some people that don't know what's going on in my committee making decisions.
Okay, 25th at 9:00.
How does that message go? How, if that's the message you wanna send, how does that message go out to those committees?
Those committees will not be meeting before the 25th.
oh, that's something different or is
These committees of jurisdiction gave you this budget. That's my opinion. They passed it on to you. They had their opportunities to cut, they didn't.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I guess that's just kind of the way I feel at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what they've told you they needed.
You know, those three positions at judicial that we had to add, that's a big, is there any way they can get a little more operating revenue to help cut that?
Judicial
Yeah.
or the security? No,
Yeah.
there's no revenue for security. It's operating levy.
No, the judges won't or don't have access to funds to help us out.
They can't raise the fines or the,
Nope, that's state law stuff,
oh,
and we don't get any of that money.
Yeah, I was gonna say we keep such a small
3
amount.
cents on the dollar. So even if you guys were to meet back in October, your meeting's on the 8th, a lot of those committees still wouldn't have met before even the next scheduled finance.
After the first is a Wednesday.
And you call a special meeting, I guess.
Which eats into the budget.
So you would have probably your special meeting in October and then would have a special meeting the following week in October, the 15th, to address those issues. Would that be helpful?
Possibly.
That would be like the only agenda item on the 15th would be that discussion. He's the chair. Does that help you, Leila? October 15th to have the special meeting. That would give the departments and their committees time to go back to the committee.
I can do the 15th, October 15th.
So you're saying not the 25th or the 25th as well, just to talk through some things?
I don't know that the 25th would be beneficial if the departments aren't gonna be able to get back to their committee by then. You guys would have the same conversation with no answers, I think.
We would have information from the department head meeting though.
Right. True.
I don't think any committee made a change to a budget, so.
You don't think they're gonna do anything? They're gonna let us do it? Well, I mean, if that's a message they send, then we could meet earlier.
Well, I think in all fairness, I'm just picturing how we work as people. In all fairness, not everybody knew what we're gonna be short, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody knew we were gonna be short 2 million or 1 million or 500,000. Unfortunately or fortunately, the committees I sit on are minuscule, okay? Their budgets increased by 10,000, 15,000. Oh, that's not the end of the world. I knew that and I was okay with that. But some of you sit on other committees that your budgets are a lot larger. That's where the problem is.
I can send out an email to the department heads requesting to revisit their budgets and let them know what we're looking for and
Go from there, I guess.
see if we can get some.
And do we know the
something.
exact shortfall for each department?
Short, like with the
What they're
levy
short,
increase.
yeah.
Most of it is in personal services, other than those items that I just went over above and beyond personal services. So, you know, it would have to be a cut to, you know, to what we put in for personal services. If there's no other option.
Right.
Well, didn't we just spend all that money start of last year on some new software program? I think it had something to do with finance and something to do with each department reporting on each.
Yeah,
It was supposed to have been so much better.
we're going live on 1/1 of 26.
Yeah, it was a whole new software system to cut everything back, make it simplify your job and also cut expenses.
Well, we won't see the efficiencies until it goes live.
Yeah, and then you're probably looking at 2 years.
26.
So there's
Yeah, it's
nothing
gonna take some time.
to figure out where it helps us out and if there's anything we can do with that information, but that's not till next year, so.
At the meeting on the 25th, what is our goal or objective? What do we want to come out of that meeting? Are we going to have a plan for the department heads? How much should come from each department? Or what's our goal out of the 25th? Again, given that we're going to go into that meeting with very limited information.
But we weren't gonna do the
Right.
25th.
If
I
we,
think now Christie was saying going more to October, right?
Or it's October,
did you say?
Don't have anything back.
So no meeting on the 25th.
right.
September is a long month because
Well, I had said if we were gonna give it back to departments, but then the discussion was maybe the department heads. So it's up to you guys. I was just throwing out dates to help you
Appreciate that.
plan.
Oh, go ahead.
So I guess my thought here is with department heads, obviously we need to look at that, but should not our jurisdiction, our big three, be looking to set a special meeting? I know you said highways coming up in this timely, maybe we need to get the other two to have a special budget related meeting, because they're the ones that are gonna have the biggest hit. I mean, not throwing them under the bus, but some of us that have, we are what we are. I don't know that I can cut a ton. I'm
And that's
trying to
kind
get
of what I
everything.
had said earlier, Mark.
But I think them calling a special meeting makes more sense. So you have department heads, crunch their numbers, they bring it to their committee, it's a budget only meeting for that committee, and that way this meeting would be more efficient because they're coming back with saying, where can we get some funds?
And then I would like to keep the meeting on the 25th, so we keep the thing moving and not last
Yes,
minute we gotta
exactly.
make stupid decision.
I don't know what the notices are to get them out to them, but this is crucial. I know Heidi's been talking about this for a long time, so I think pushing it down even a month is not a good idea when you're looking at having to read your budget here at the end of October. That's not a lot of time, so my opinion.
Well, and if there's like I said, if there's the wheel tax isn't an option. If that's not an option, I mean, I you know,
Wheel tax, not to interrupt, but the wheel tax ain't gonna be done quick enough to generate,
To make a difference.
make a difference this year or in the budget for,
yeah, well,
you know.
Yeah, well,
You can do it that quick?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, I didn't think you could, but okay. Stand corrected.
But let's not bet on that.
You'd like to what?
Well,
Let's
no.
let's not bet on the wheel tax
No.
until we hammer out,
Until we get a wheel.
till we get a budget cut to the bone.
Right.
Okay, I think the consensus is that the three big ones that have the most spending, have them try to get a meeting in order here before the 25th. We keep our meeting on the 25th to look at what they came back with.
Ours is next Thursday, so
That's fine.
I can take care of.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
But the 25th is when we decide, we gotta make the call eventually, right?
We have to make the call eventually, but that doesn't mean we need to make it on the 25th completely. Gives us a little more leeway here yet than to,
If we can do it on the 25th, I think.
well, that's fine, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
If we can, but I'm not so sure that's gonna happen. Okay, thank you.
So we're back. Meeting
Meeting on the 25th, even though Lila maybe can't.
September 25th, 9 AM. I'll check with them to make sure we can be here.
Okay.
And then just the one agenda item is gonna be the 2026 budget review.
Yep.
okay. I have the 2026 financial review, 2025.
It's gonna be secondary.
Well, good meeting.
Just wanted to take note, I'll just kind of quickly go through the graphs. Operating cash flow, about 4 million below what the August 31st, 2024 balance was, which is, you know, what my concern is with the interest. August 31st, 2020, or I should say 2024, 5 balance 953, 121 is 43,492, higher than the previous year for delinquent taxes over county. Interest on investments, we're about 161,000 more than we were at previous year, but that is, interest may not have all been booked when I created this report. The balance on interest on delinquents is approximately 43,000 less than 2024. And this is where I'm saying, right now, we're projecting 5.4 million over budget on the sales tax, or 5.4 million of sales tax, which is about 327,000 over what our 2025 budget is. So right now, our operating revenue is about 67% under budget, but also our expenditures are about 3.5 million under 67% of the budget, and our expenses are about 3.2 million under 67% of the budget. But both fall in line as where we've been in, based on the graph. Highway cash flows is cash balance of 2 million at the close of August, a little bit different from July. And then you got the detail on all the other departments, and I'm sorry, I just am a little bit done right now. So if there's any questions?
What you're saying is everything's kind of in line what you expected.
Yeah, they're things are looking okay. And then at the back, you can see the capital plan and the renovation project. Sorry. So if there's any questions on that, I would entertain those.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the gift, Lila.
You're welcome.
I'm really sorry. I have to go.
Sure.
So I got multiple pieces in my agenda for today. So we talked a little bit, and the first piece I have is our T-Tech annual service costs. And with our change, again, T-Tech is our new provider for land information, so are our all of our tax base, all of our land records. So again, that's totally taken care of. Everything as far as our tax base, our land information, as far as our value. So this entire program is now on my budget. So our 2026 budget is 61,204 is the estimate for our maintenance costs with T-Tech. It breaks down into some different areas. The two big ones are the land records software, it's about 22 grand. T-Tech is hosting the information, is about 15 grand. We do have some stuff that's related to our departments. Register of Deeds has some pieces, land use and sanitary, which is zoning related programs as part of this as well. So you'll see when I get into my budget that that area has gone up for this year, but that's 61,204. So we talked a little bit. I know some of you reached out to me, and I believe David's here today with the question on the email text notification tied to our tax bills. I've elected not to pursue this at this point, and I'm strictly looking at two pieces. Part of it is costs, and part of it is I think we have other options at this time in our programs that meet the needs of our constituents. Versus the additional cost to add. So what this would be, it'd be an email text notification where our taxpayers could go on to our system and they would elect. It's not something that everybody would have. They would have the option of signing up. It's kind of like your online banking or whatever. You have that option of going out and doing it. Where they would get notification via an email or text as to when a tax bill is generated. Notice of tax bill reminders, that second installment, notification of payments been made. That's probably important in case we have a ton of payments come in via escrow. So we do get a lot of people that are inquiring whether the escrow got paid or not. And then the other one would be a delinquency notice. So these pieces are all covered in different avenues. When the tax bill is generated, as soon as it's uploaded on my end, it does go out onto our website. So people can monitor our website as far as for their tax bills, so they can see it before it is mailed. Traditionally, I post it, and within a day or two, it's being sent to our vendor that mails our tax bills, but they can see that as soon as I approve it and put it on our program assistance. Those second installment reminders, we do a postcard. There is a cost to that, without a doubt. That's not a requirement by statute that we do second tax bill reminders. However, that is a tremendous savings for us at our office because those tax bills, those bright colored cards have a barcode on it. Our three banks that collect for us, it's vital for them as well, helpful for that. Plus, it's just sending those people all the notice that, hey, remember you have a second notice. Everybody should know that. I know Dwayne and I have talked about this. People know they have taxes. It's not my responsibility necessarily to remind them, but yet it's important. Anytime a tax bill payment is made, again, they have that option of going out to our system. They can sell a self-addressed stamped envelope, and Dennis can attest to this. Anytime a person makes a payment, we will mail them a receipt if they provide a stamp. The only time we send a receipt out automatically if they're paying on a delinquency, then it's required by law that I send that. But if someone just sends in their first payment with their stub, we do not send them a receipt, nor will we. And then the delinquency notice piece. So we've done a couple different things here. After first installment, I do a delinquency notice in February. We send out notice, and roughly is about 1,000 notices roughly in February go out to any delinquent notice. I wanna get that out as soon as possible. Part of it is a lot of people know they are delinquent or they missed it, but a lot of times with amount of escrows and things like that, I think it has strong value to get that to them right away. Because the interest does start accumulating immediately. I'll talk to you some numbers here in a little bit. In August, something new for this year, I did send out a delinquency notice in August. Talking to and emailing with my fellow county treasurers around the state, a lot of them do it. I saw a great value of it as well. To get that notice out after a grace period, that about the 8th or 9th of August, I created delinquency notices, got them out in the mail, and it did bring in a lot of payments right away, so those people were aware much earlier. By law, September 1st, I do have to create tax certificates. That puts them on notice that in 2 years I can take their property if their taxes aren't sent. That I had to do in September anyway. So in the past, if they were not aware they missed their first, were short on their installment or something of that notice, they wouldn't get notice from me until September that their taxes were delinquent, other than if they didn't admit to February, but interest goes back to February. So it's almost a 10% penalty. That's pretty substantial. So that's how we're handling it now. So I've not elected to pursue this program. I do see some of the benefit of it. The initial cost would be $11,500 to put the program in place. Then annual maintenance would be about $2,400 in the future. So I think it's going to have something I would like to go to in the future, as more and more people are dealing with emails and texts. But in the same part of me says, with the amount of issues people get with emails and texts, is this going to create some issues or concerns out there? And again, they elect to do it, but just wanted to bring you up to it. I know that you've each been discussed as far as this program. So, any questions on the whole T-Tech software?
I guess I'd love to see us revisit this a year
Oh yeah,
from now.
absolutely. This is something I can add at any time.
Given our prior discussion, I'm annoyed to
Right.
take it
And
on
that's
this
exactly
time.
right. It's a cost.
You see some of the benefits that have been outlined.
Especially where mail, United States Postal Service, their dependability is not where it was in the past. So I think you could cut some things there and go this route. But again, with our age in our county, a lot of people are not going to be, are not going to take advantage of this, that they do rely still on our mail.
Mark, yesterday I got a Sunday school note in the mail from, I got a reverse mortgage. They want a proof of taxes were paid. Well, when I got to whoever was doing your desk, when you get the second half done, said, do you want a receipt? And I said, yeah. And I sent it into this administrator. Well, then I get a deadbeat by it and didn't get one. Well, it just so happened our city clerk in the credit union. He said, I can give you one of those right away, Fred. Okay. So over there a little later, sure enough, she had waiting for me. So you don't have to, your guys don't have to print.
We do not have to. They have access, anybody, the public has access to their tax bill at any point. They can go out on their system and print the tax bill. They can get a copy of their receipts. They do have to be savvy enough to be able to go on our website to do it, and things of that nature. So yes, they always have, and so do the banks. I mean, a lot of them use our system. I send out a file to CoreLogic, which kind of helps work with escrows every year of our tax bills. So they get that. They get a file of all our delinquencies, so they can look at a file of thousands versus having to go on our system. They all have that ability to go to our system, and so it's there and readily available. And much with that's positive with going to T-Tech. I feel it's a lot more user friendly. There are a couple things I wish were a little better, because some people search by too much. If they try and put too much in there, everything has to line up to bring it through. So we just say, hey, do a search in your last name and first initial, and you'll more than likely find every parcel that's, unless you have a common name, you should be able to find yours relatively.
More questions on that piece? Yes, David, I will be looking at, this is not something I will not be looking at in the future, certainly.
Thank you.
So budget review, I did place that on your desk this morning, of the various items, and I just will highlight some of those. Obviously, my area is an important piece with our overall county budget. Our overall grand total is I do have a 4% increase in my overall budget. Obviously, my expenditures are down 4%. So my increase is mainly in personal services, and we are losing some monies, opportunities, or say, so to speak, investment in our interest end of it that affects my overall budget. As Heidi talked, we did go back a little forth with the sales tax. We are on pace to be about that 500,000. In fact, we're about $328,000 year to date over last year. So I feel really good that we will reach that amount by year end. We weren't that far off. I was not quite looking at big of an estimate, but again, based on where we are, as I was talking to Jeremy back here, I mean, certainly a percentage of our sales tax increases because costs have risen. It's a little concerning with that, but again, I think if interest rates do come down a little bit, it might free up more money for some of those expenditures. So I don't think we're out of line with what we're estimated on the sales tax. So I tried to highlight some of these things I wanted to cover with you today. The interest on delinquent taxes, I am leaving that where we are. I think I feel comfortable settling in at 310,000 on page 2 here. If you look at just 2 years ago in 2024, that was 365,000. But I think where we are now, where we're working on 2 years of delinquencies, I feel that area, I feel good with that. When you get into the state, page 2 and 3 are basically state shared revenues, aids. Again, we're pretty much driven by what the state releases. Some of those numbers I don't get till the 15th of September. So this will probably change a little bit once I get notice from the Department of Revenue on some of these items. The big one, the state shared revenue, that Heidi estimated a 3% increase over last year. I think that's based on information that they're proposing or estimating. The big piece that I control and trying to do the best we can with would be our interest on investments. With the ones that I control, and this does not have anything to do with those funds that are in with WIS funds now, which is our debt service with our bond proceeds. So these are the general ones. As Heidi noted, we are seeing what numbers I have to work with has decreased over the last couple of years as our reserves have reduced, but I'm looking at roughly a 19% decrease in interest earnings from last year. I think with some of the stuff I have invested with CDs, that'll get me in well into 2026, based on what smart people, a whole lot smarter than me than in the investment world, feel that things are going to be pretty stable. Now, again, a crisis in the world could change things overnight, obviously, but I did use, and I did mention last month, kind of looking at roughly a 3.25% return, where this year we had up to 5 and to 4. So I'm hopeful I'm not too aggressive with what I think I can do in interest, but I feel relatively confident in what we can get there. And the reason you see some of those changes that look bigger in different ones is just where the funds are now. Trying to keep them where I get the best return and most flexibility. So you'll see some of those that are a 53% decrease, and then others will have an increase. It's just because of where monies are kind of moved around. Page 6, again, we're just looking at, again, personal services. There's going to be an increase. That contracted services on middle of page 6, that is that T-Tech. Again, I have that budgeted at 62,000, so small bump there. If you go all the way to the left, in the past, my contracted services were $440. So I've taken on a drastic cost with this T-Tech totally on my budget for the last 2 years. So it should affect hopefully IT a little bit because they don't have as big of with the AS400 related stuff. But that's why that number is what it is. Postage certainly has taken a jump on that same page. I underestimated the budget for this year. And just, again, the cost of a stamp have gone up. Now, again, could we reduce some of that without some of these notices? Certainly, but when you're looking at a total cost of $25,000, I don't think I could reduce that by more than probably $5,000 or $6,000 if I didn't send some of these notices. And I see the value to our constituents there, and I think it saves us man hours and headaches in the long run by getting those notices out timely. Other than that, for the most part, it's personal services increase. I guess going back on page 8, I think the last piece I want to mention that is just with land information. I have software maintenance highlighted. That went up about 15%. Again, I think anybody that's on the IT side knows anything related to IT. That's just strictly our maintenance agreements have gone up, and that's on the cost.
Actually, I'm surprised it's only 50.
Yeah, and some of it's offset with some grants that Jason works through and gets through from the GIS world, but yeah, some of it, it is what it is. So that is my budget that I'm presenting today, based on our prior discussion. Certainly I'll be looking to try and crunch things, but I don't know that I have a lot I can do in the expenditure side.
Can't pick up $1 million?
You know, that's
How much can you cut?
That's the sad thing is, you know, we were making 5% money a year ago right now. And now we're holding strong, I'll cover that in my financial review here, in 4% money right now. And it's changed a little bit. I think everybody would love to see lower interest rates as far as borrowing. But it costs us on the county level if that happens, and they aren't projecting as many cuts as they were previously as far as rates. But again, anything could happen, a crisis
The
of anything.
companies keep firing people. until they
Anything could happen with that. So, any questions on my proposed budget? Okay. Next piece of my agenda is in REM, just to give you an update on where we're at with that. So our 2021 list, this is the list that we are out, they are in the redemption period to get their taxes current, or we go to court on October 27th to take ownership. They have until September 11th for the redemption period. Our current list is now down to 9 owners, and 4 of the plus 4 are unknown parcels, which we know will take. We have 17 total parcels. Last month we were at 13 owners and 22 parcels. So that continues to knock down. I do know and expect by Friday that will be down another owner and a parcel. I do think when it comes to court, I think we'll hopefully knock out a couple more. We'll certainly be taking a few parcels back here in October.
And those owners get one more mailing from me. I actually have to file the motion for judgment. So that's going out at the end of September, so they'll get one more notice.
And that usually gets their attention, because I believe that is certified and.
No, that one's not. The first one.
How about that property in Clintonville where you reduced the?
So that one's on my next one piece, so that we do have one piece of property in Clintonville. That 19th Street property has not sold at 30,000. We did not get any bids. I have put some signage up. I'm leaving that at 30,000. I just don't believe that it needs to go below that. I have put some signage up. I actually was over there last Thursday and met with somebody that wanted to walk in. I'm not letting people in there without me being there or Bob being there, just because of the condition of the property. This was that property again had a fire, and they were intrigued by it. So I'm hopeful. I just can't imagine you can buy a parcel and has a foundation that is in good condition. The heat, everything looks good that way. It's just the first floor has got to be gutted. So I'm hopeful we can still get that 30,000. I'm going to sit on that for a little bit, and that ties into my next piece. Why I'm sitting on it right now is on Friday. I've talked about this for probably 2 years, 3 years. Unknown parcels that we had taken back. We are advertising those for sale starting on Friday. I have 74 parcels throughout the county that will be advertised for sale. These are all those slivers that are in miscellaneous pieces. So We are sending out mailings to the adjacent landowners with a picture of it, information. Carly's working on that now, but that will hit the papers on Friday. I think the letters and apps are gonna draw more interest, but not really looking forward to this piece whatsoever, but yet in the same token is what it is. So those will have a 3-week ad time, and minimum bids are assessed value, which in some cases is too high. So it's gonna be a process to get these sold, but again, the whole target is get these back on the tax roll. Last Pete, anything, questions laying around?
Gonna generate like $1 million.
Yeah. No, no. Most of these are maybe $100. But unfortunately, what happens with it is any of the sales proceeds I get on these with a profit with new law, I'm gonna have to send out a check to an unknown owner, and then it gets unclaimed for 10 years before we can really do anything with those funds. It's a 10-year, it's an unclaimed fund situation, so yeah, we'll be sending checks to an unknown owner at this address.
Just a question on that, since I'm on planning and zoning. If a neighbor ends up buying that little sliver, whatever it is, and they want to bring that all together under one parcel, do we have to wait for the 10 years?
No, they can take ownership. If they buy it and they'll get a deed.
I'm just curious.
Yep, they'll get a deed, they will own that sliver. And I've already had talk with zoning on this because it's gonna be depending on where you are. So most of the townships are governed by our zoning, so I will send them to zoning where they would go through the process of combining the parcels. If they're in a village or a city, they'll have to go to the village or city to get it. And which I think in a lot of cases, they're gonna wanna do that so they don't have 2 tax bills. So it's gonna be a process. My bigger concern is some of these parcels are gonna have a benefit to multiple neighbors there, because the way it goes down there is, I'm gonna want this, that's gonna be a pain in the butt. So one of them's gonna take ownership and then they may have to split it and do I'm not looking forward to some of this, to be honest with you. I think it's gonna be a mess, but it's gotta get done because they've been sitting there for 25 years and it's time to do something with them. Any other questions?
Do you think any of them are gonna end up in a bidding war?
Eventually, that's my biggest scare. In fact, I do know there will be one in the city of Clintonville, because I've gotten calls from both sides that don't like each other, and that's why the letters are going out, that hopefully it'll initiate a conversation, because then I would say of these 74, I bet you 65 of them don't even know about them. We've sent letters when we took them back and got no response. A lot of people don't even know that exists. I mean, when you work here and deal with it every day, you understand it, but as a taxpayer, you just say, I own from that rock to that tree to this, and all of a sudden we're gonna tell them, well, you really don't. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to some of these calls we're gonna get with it. I don't have the ability to just say, okay, it's yours, even though in a lot of these cases, it clearly should belong to Joel. I don't have the authority to do that. It's not legal, they have to go through the process, and I'm gonna tell them they have to pay $500 for a piece of property they've been mowing for 25 years, and I already have owned it. It's not gonna be pretty in some cases. So in some cases, I don't think we'll get bids, and then I can re-advertise and lower the price, and then they probably would be looking to do it. But then that opens up from Joe Blow that wants to just own some property in Wapaka County, and I'd love to own that parcel between these 2 people, and I can't control it. So yes, to answer your question, yes, and it scares the crap out of me, but it is what it is.
You got big shoulders, you can handle it.
It's just one I wish I never had to do, but yet it's gotta get done. Any other questions on that piece? I'll get to the financial review quickly. You see a lot of red up there. Dispersed almost 19 million went out to the township schools, Fox Valley Tech with the August settlement after tax collection. So that's why you see 5 million, almost 6 in cash, and 14 million out of our 2 investment accounts. I have noted that the tax certificate number, I've mentioned that high number of 46,000, that's a great number for reduction in tax certificate number, because again, sending out those ton of payments, ton of people look at and say, I never realized, I don't know how many times I gotta send them notices before they finally look at one, but they seem to, so that's why that number is a good number of paid and delinquent, taxes. Same thing with the interest on delinquent tax of 51,000. That's a really big month for us for being August. That normally is more into September. So September is really less than normal, but August. Sales tax, as I kind of alluded to, were 328,000 year to date over where we were a year ago. So again, ID's forecast of being 500 plus for year to date, I think is right on pace. I feel good about that as well. I already talked about interest rates have been holding pretty strong at the 4% and everything forecast. In fact, I met with Josh Barbian, who I deal with all of our WISC funds. And a lot of the projections stuff I was able to put out in a term series and CDs out there is still holding 4% into next year's. And then the ARPA funds on the bottom, we show ARPA funds of 4.1 million. The ARPA funds have been all spent. We just have not pulled them out of this account because some of this I had invested, and those are going to mature here in September. So when I come to you next month, there'll be no ARPA funds. That'll all get moved into our investment account. That's all I got.
Well,
Questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, Jeremy?
Morning. Still morning. Here for budget review, I can tell you right now, I don't have $1 million.
Oh. Well, that's gonna be my first question.
So along with the proposed budget, I did throw a sheet on the backside that lays out some historical numbers on our documents, deeds, and transfer fee counts. Just as a little bit of a reference. Our source of revenue in our office is based on the real estate market. Big sales, money, documents recorded. So that kind of goes hand in hand. I think you'll recall probably last year, and I think Dave and Dwayne, I had alluded to some legislation that was out there last year, increasing that split on the transfer fee. Currently, the county gets 20% of the transfer fees collected. The proposed legislation last year was to break that to a 50% split to come back to the counties. Also a piece going to land information, which would help out Mark's department. Unfortunately, that legislation did kind of peter out last year. It's likely to come back again. I will let you know when that happens. And what I probably would ask of you folks is to reach out to our 3 senators and 4 representatives. I've done that. For this particular piece of legislation, I believe 2 of our senators and 3 of our representatives actually signed on to the bill, so they were in support of it. But we need to put that pressure on because it really doesn't do anything for my office. We still collect the same money, but on the backside, it does bring some revenue back into the county. So cross your fingers that something can happen. Instead of us collecting, $180,000, maybe we can bring in $500,000. But again, that goes with sales. We've had some pretty strong years. Our numbers have been pretty good. I'm confident that we're not going to drop off a cliff or anything, but things are slowing down a little bit in the housing market. With our revenues, a lot of our money comes from the sale of documents. That, of course, goes with the sale of properties. Interest rates have an effect. If we see a drop in interest rates, we can see a spur of refinancing, which is good because that's a couple documents recorded in our office, and we do get recording fees from each document recorded. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the housing market's going to do in the next 6 months to the year and beyond. I know locally we do have the new development just down the road here, River North subdivision. I think they're going to be having some of those properties will be moving, which should help out a little bit with some housing. Any questions on revenues? No questions. Expenditures, we don't have much. Personnel services are bulk of it. We do have a contract with our land records software provider to provide maintenance. That's been at $22,000 for the past few years. we're locked into that price again next year. If you recall, when we switched to West Central, that was a savings to our yearly maintenance. So I'm glad we did that when we did. It does provide a little bit of savings, not probably what we're looking for, but other than that, our supplies and expenses, postage, I've got decreasing just a little bit. A lot of our documents are coming in electronically, so that helps. You'll see one line item there, office supplies. I didn't cut that by $1,000. I reallocated it to a different line item. And that's down the bottom of supplies and expense for operating supplies. That's vital records paper. That's the paper we print our birth, death, and marriage records on. I didn't feel comfortable leaving that in as an office supply. To me, an office supply a lot of times can be more of a want than a need. We take our scrap paper and cut it up and staple it together instead of buying Post-it notes. But the vital records is a type of paper that we have to order once a year, and we need it. And I always want to have that kind of separate. So I did move that money there. I did ask for a slight increase in mileage expense. Gas is going up with it. And with my position, I try to stay as educated and involved as I can with our association. I serve on our executive committee and our legislative committee, which is nice because I'm at the forefront of all of this stuff when it happens, but it does require me to travel on occasion. So I did put a minor increase there. Other than that, I don't have any big solutions to help out on a grander scale, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jeremy? Again, when you got smaller figures, the percentage balloons more than what it really is. That's the way the world, economics figures.
We did see some slight revenue increases this year on our vital records end of things. I don't anticipate that to carry forward. Maybe some of you were part of the increase, but the Real ID law went into effect in May, which required a lot of people to come in and get copies of their birth certificates and marriage licenses. We were up about 30% in birth records and 20% in marriage records, which I think people needed them now so they could get that star on their license. I don't think that's going to be a continued thing, but our I don't want to sound too morbid, but our death numbers have been holding pretty steady with history. We're not seeing big changes there.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I'm right here. And just the one item, the per diem for the month, and the total for that was $14,019.40. And I just need a motion in a second to get that approved.
I so move.
Heard the motion.
Second. What? Approve that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Check.
Lee made.
What?
Yeah.
Check, yeah.
No, I thought you had a question. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I thought.
Dave second.
Oh,
it's already done, Fred.
Yeah.
speak up, Dave.
Fred was gonna third it.
Huh?
He said Fred was gonna third it.
Oh.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Whoops. So we're gonna have the special meeting on the 25th and then the regular meeting on the 8th at this point.
That is what I have.
Okay.
okay.
Motion to adjourn.
We are done.